Welcome to another edition of Marlon Technique TV. Tricky Math.
Hey there. Subscribe to my channel. And also press
Today,
this bell icon.
we will discuss about the absolute value. The absolute value of a number corresponds to its distance from 0 or origin on the number line. For example, 6 is 6 units away from 0. Thus, its absolute value is written as positive 6 is equal to 6. And since negative 11 is 11 units away from 0, then its absolute value is 11, written as absolute value of negative 11 is equal to 11. So this is the number line from the origin 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on is the positive side. And from the left side, we have negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, negative 6, and so on for the negative side of the number line. So for the illustration, for absolute value of 6 is equal to 6 or 6 units, we have, so from the origin 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it is 6 units away from the origin 0. So that is the illustration of the absolute value of 6 is equal to 6. So for the absolute value of negative 11, we have 11 or 11 units because it is 11 units away from the origin 0. So from the origin 0, we have 0, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, negative 6, negative 7, negative 8, negative 9, negative 10, and negative 11. So that is the illustration for the absolute value of negative 11, which is equal to 11 or 11 units away from the origin 0. So another examples, we have the absolute value of 2 is equal to 2. 2 units away from the origin 0. So the absolute value of negative 3 is equal to 3. So it is 3 units away from the origin 0 on the negative side. So positive 12 is equal to 12. The absolute value of 12 is equal to 12, which is 12 units away from the origin 0. So number 4, absolute value of 25 is equal to 25. 25 units away from the origin 0. Number 5, absolute value of negative 35 is equal to 35, which is 35 units away from the origin 0 on the left side, on the negative side. Number 6, absolute value of 100 is equal to 100, which is 100 units away from the origin 0 on the positive side. And absolute value of negative 200 is equal to 200. So 200 units away from the origin 0 on the negative side. Number 8, absolute value of 3,000 is equal to 3,000. 3,000 away from the origin 0. Number 9, absolute value of negative 4,000 is equal to 4,000. 4,000 away from the origin 0 on the negative side. And number 10, the absolute value of 1 million is equal to 1 million. 1 million away from the origin 0.
Hey there. Subscribe to my channel. And also press
Okay,
this bell icon.
of example for the absolute value, but this time we have number 1, negative absolute value of 2 is equal to negative 2. Why? Because the absolute value of 2 is positive 2, but we have the negative sign on the outside, so it will become negative 2. So number 2, negative absolute value of 10 is equal to negative 10, because the absolute value of 10 is equal to 10, and we have the negative sign outside the absolute value sign, so it will become negative 10. So number 3, this time we have negative absolute value of negative 20 is equal to negative 20. For the same reason, it is the absolute value of negative 20 is equal to 20. But this time we have the negative sign on the outside of the absolute value, so it will become negative 20. So number 4, the negative absolute value of 435 is equal to negative 435. The same reason, the absolute value of 435 is equal to 435, but we have the negative sign outside the absolute value sign, so it will become negative 435. So number 5, we have negative absolute value of negative 10,000 is equal to negative 10,000. For the same reason, the absolute value of negative 10,000 is equal to 10,000, and we have the negative sign outside the absolute value sign, so it will become negative 10,000. So number 6, this time we have negative absolute value of negative, open and close parenthesis, negative 6. So it will become negative, negative, so it will become positive. So therefore, we have negative absolute value of positive 6. And then to get the absolute value of 6, we will have negative 6. As the absolute value of 6 is equal to 6, but we have negative sign on the outside of the absolute value sign, so the answer is negative 6. Number 7, negative absolute value of negative, open and close parenthesis, 20 is equal to negative absolute value of negative 20, so which is equal to negative 20. Number 8, negative absolute value of negative 100 is equal to negative 100. So as the absolute value of negative 100 is 100, but we have the negative sign, so it is equal to negative 100. Number 9, negative absolute value of negative, open and close parenthesis, negative 1,000 is equal to negative, negative, it will become positive. So therefore, it will become negative absolute value of positive 1,000. And the absolute value of 1,000 is 1,000. And then we have the negative sign outside the absolute value. So it will become negative 1,000. So number 10, negative absolute value of 45 is equal to negative 45. As the absolute value of 45 is 45, and then we have the negative sign outside the absolute value sign, so it will become negative 45. Okay, for the absolute value, now we have absolute value and operation. For addition and subtraction, we will have another set of example. So here it goes. Find the absolute value of 12 minus 5. So what we will do first is to perform the operational requirement inside the absolute value sign. So for the absolute value of 12 minus 5, we will have absolute value of 7 by subtracting 12 minus 5. Then the absolute value of 7 is equal to 7. So for number 2, we have negative absolute value of 100 minus negative 20. We will have negative absolute value of 100 plus 20, because 100 minus negative 20, negative, negative, so it will become positive. So that is the reason why we have negative absolute value of 100 plus 20. So therefore, negative 100 plus 20, the absolute value, we will have negative absolute value of 120. And then the absolute value of 120 is 120, but we have negative sign outside the absolute value sign, so we will have the answer is negative 120. So okay, another set of example. We have absolute value of 40 minus, open and close parenthesis, negative 2. So the same, negative, negative, it will become positive. So therefore, we have the absolute value of 40 plus 2. Then it will become absolute value of 42. And then getting the absolute value of 42 is equal to 42. Number 4, we have the absolute value of negative 20 plus negative 20. So this time, positive, negative. So unlike sign, it will become negative. So therefore, we will have absolute value of negative 20 minus 20. Therefore, negative 20 minus 20, it will become absolute value of negative 40. Then the absolute value of negative 40 is equal to 40. Number 5, we have absolute value of 12 minus 2 plus 8. So 12 minus 2 is equal to 10. So therefore, we will have the absolute value of 10 plus 8. So therefore, find the absolute value of 10 is equal to 10. So therefore, we will have 10 plus 8. And 10 plus 8 is equal to 18. So for number 6, we have absolute value of 2 plus the absolute value of negative 3 is equal to, for the absolute value of 2 is equal to 2, and for the absolute value of negative 3 is equal to positive 3. So therefore, we have 2 plus 3 is equal to 5. Number 7, find the absolute value of 10 plus the absolute value of 2. So therefore, we will have absolute value of 10 is equal to 10, and the absolute value of 2 is equal to 2. So therefore, we have 10 plus 2 is equal to 12. Number 8, we have negative absolute value of negative 10 minus absolute value of 20 is equal to, so the absolute value of negative 10 is 10, but we have the negative sign outside the absolute value sign. So we have negative 10. So therefore, the absolute value of 20 is 20. Then minus sign. So therefore, we have negative 10 minus 20 is equal to negative 30. So number 9, we have absolute value of 10 minus negative 1 minus absolute value of negative 2 minus 4. So we will have 10 minus open and close parenthesis negative 1. So negative negative, so it will become positive. So therefore we will have the absolute value of 11. And then for negative 2 minus 4, since same sign, so it will become negative 6. So the absolute value of 11 is 11, and the absolute value of negative 6 is 6, and then we have the minus sign, so therefore it will become 11 minus 6, which is equal to 5. So for number 10, we have find the absolute value of 4 minus 3 plus absolute value of negative 2 minus 12 minus absolute value of negative 8. So for the absolute value of 4 minus 3, we have 4 minus 3 is equal to 1. So, and then negative 2 minus 12, so like sign, it will become negative 14. And then negative 8. So the absolute value of 1 is 1. And the absolute value of negative 14 is 14. And the absolute value of 8 is 8. But we have the minus sign, so it will become minus 8. So therefore, 1 plus 14 is equal to 15 minus 8. So it will become 15 minus 8 will become 7. Okay. For again, absolute value. For the absolute value and operation, this time for multiplication and division, we have find the absolute value of 3 multiplied by 2. So perform the operational requirement inside the absolute value sign. So therefore, we will have 3 multiplied by 2 is equal to absolute value of 6. And then getting the absolute value of 6, we have 6. For number 2, we have absolute value of negative 2 multiplied by negative 4. And we will have absolute value of negative 8. Then getting the absolute value of negative 8, we will have 8. So for number 3, absolute value of open and close parenthesis 2 multiplied by open and close parenthesis negative 6. Then, as we remember, if no operation between two numbers with open and close parenthesis, so it will automatically become multiplication. So therefore, we'll have absolute value of open and close parenthesis 2 multiplied by open and close parenthesis negative 6. So we will have absolute value of negative 12. And then getting the absolute value of negative 12, we have 12. So for number 4, absolute value of 12 times 100. So we will have absolute value of 1,200. Then to get the absolute value of 1,200, we have 1,200. So for number 5, we have negative absolute value of 3,000 multiplied by negative 23. So we have negative absolute value of negative 69,000. And the absolute value of 69,000 is 69,000, but we have the negative sign outside the absolute value sign. So we have negative 69,000 as the answer. So number 6. So it is the same. We have negative absolute value of 40 multiplied by 80. So it is equal to negative absolute value of 3,200. And getting the value of absolute value of 3,200 is 3,200, but we have the negative sign outside the absolute value sign. So we will have negative 3,200. So for number 7, we have negative absolute value of 2 multiplied by 3 plus absolute value of 5 multiplied by 4 is equal to negative 2 multiplied by 3. We have the absolute value of negative absolute value of 6. And then for 5 multiplied by 4, we have the positive absolute value of 20. So therefore, we have negative absolute value of 6 plus absolute value of 20. And then getting the absolute value of 6, we have negative 6, as the absolute value of 6 is 6. And since it is negative sign outside the absolute value sign, so it will become negative 6. And then for the absolute value of 20 is positive 20. And then we have the positive sign, so plus sign. So it will become negative 6 plus 20. And negative 6 plus 20 is equal to 14. Number 8. Negative absolute value of 2 multiplied by negative 3 minus absolute value of 5 multiplied by negative 2. We have negative absolute value of negative 6 by multiplying 2 multiplied by 3. Unlike sign, so it will become absolute value of negative 6 with a negative sign outside the absolute value sign minus 5 multiplied by negative 2. So it is negative 10. So we have absolute value of negative 10. So getting the absolute value of negative 6, we have 6, but outside, it has outside the absolute sign, it has a negative sign, so it will become negative 6. And then for the negative 10, the absolute value of negative 10 is 10, and then we have the minus sign, so it will become minus 10. So therefore, negative 6 minus 10 is equal to negative 16 as the answer. So for number 9, this time we have absolute value of 2 multiplied by 5 plus 4 multiplied by 6 minus absolute value of 3 multiplied by 1 minus 2 multiplied by 3. So we have absolute value of 2 times 5 is equal to 10 plus 4 times 6 is equal to 24. So we have absolute value of 10 plus 24. And then for 3 times 1 is 3 and 2 times 3 is 6. So we have absolute value of 3 minus 6. So therefore, 10 plus 24 is equal to 34 and 3 minus 6 is equal to negative 3. So we have absolute value of 34 minus absolute value of 3. Then to get the absolute value of 34 is 34, and to get the absolute value of negative 3 is 3. So therefore, 34 minus 3 is equal to 31. Multiplication. Okay, absolute value and operation for multiplication and division. It's time for number 10. Absolute value of 24 divide 6 is equal to 24 divided by 6, and be illustrated like this. And 24 divided by 6 is equal to 4, and the absolute value of 4 is equal to 4. So for number 11, we have negative absolute value of 81 divided by 9 is equal to negative absolute value of 9. And then getting the absolute value of 9 is 9, but we have the negative sign outside the absolute value sign, so it will become negative 9. So number 12, so absolute value of negative 24 divided by negative 2. So negative, negative, it will become positive. So 24 divided by 2 is equal to 12, and the absolute value of 12 is equal to 12. Number 13, find the absolute value of negative 35 divided by 5. So is equal to absolute value of negative 7, and the absolute value of negative 7 is equal to 7. Okay, for the absolute value and operation of multiplication and division, we have number 14. Find the absolute value of negative absolute value of 25 divided by negative 5 is equal to 25 divided by negative 5. Then we will have the negative absolute value of negative 5. Then getting the absolute value of negative 5 is 5, but we have the negative sign outside the absolute value sign, so the answer is negative 5. So for number 15, we have absolute value of 25 divided by 5 minus absolute value of 8 divided by negative 2. Then for 25 divided by 5, we have absolute value of 5, and for 8 divided by negative 2 is we have negative 4. So getting the absolute value of 5 is 5, and absolute value of negative 4 is 4. So therefore we have 5 minus 4 is equal to 1. So number 16, absolute value of negative 36 divided by 9 plus absolute value of 22 divided by 11. We have for negative 36 divided by 9, we have the absolute value of negative 4. And for 22 divided by 11, we have the absolute value of 2. So getting the absolute value of negative 4, we have 4, and absolute value of 2 is 2. So therefore 4 plus 2 is equal to 6. So for number 17, we have absolute value of 5 multiplied by 10 multiplied by absolute value of 2 multiplied by 3. So we have for 5 multiplied by 10, we have the absolute value of 50, and for 2 multiplied by 3, we have the absolute value of 6. So therefore we have absolute value of 50 multiplied by 6. Now get the absolute value of 50, we have 50, and getting the absolute value of 6, we have 6. So therefore 50 multiplied by 6 is equal to 300. So for number 18, we have absolute value of 12 divided by 2, and absolute value of negative 3 multiplied by 5. So again, no operational sign between them. So it is automatically considered as multiplication. So 12 divided by 2, we have the absolute value of 6, and negative 3 multiplied by 5, we have absolute value of negative 15. So therefore, we have absolute value of 6 multiplied by absolute value of negative 15. So for the absolute value of 6, we have 6. And for the absolute value of negative 15, we have 15. So therefore, 6 multiplied by 15 is equal to 90. Number 19. Negative absolute value of 20 over 5 divide absolute value of negative 8 over 2 is also can be read as negative absolute value of 20 over 5 over absolute value of negative 8 over 2. Okay. 20 divided by 5 is 4 with a negative sign. And then negative 8 divided by 2 is equal to negative 2. And now, to get the absolute value of negative absolute value of 4, we have negative 4, as the absolute value of 4 is 4 and having the negative sign outside the absolute value sign. So the answer is negative 4. And for the absolute value of negative 2 is positive 2. So therefore, we have negative 4 divided by 2 is equal to negative 2. Number 20. Find the absolute value of open and close parenthesis 30 multiplied by 10 over 15 over 3 open and close parenthesis multiply by the absolute value of 100 over 10 open and close parenthesis over 25 over 5 open and close parenthesis. So for open and close parenthesis 30 multiplied by 10, we have 300. And for open and close parenthesis 15 divided by 3, we have 5. So therefore, we have the absolute value of 300 over 5. Then for the absolute value of 100 divided by 10, open and close parenthesis, we have 10. And for 25 over 5, open and close parenthesis, we have 5. So therefore, we have absolute value of 10 over 5. So for absolute value of 300 divided by 5, we have absolute value of 60. And for absolute value of 10 divided by 5, we have absolute value of 2. So therefore, getting the absolute value of 60, we have 60, and the absolute value of 2, we have 2. So therefore, 60 multiplied by 2 is equal to 120.